Mm-hmm.
This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it is time for Avoid the Maze. And this week, I made an announcement on Avoid the Maze that we're doing something a little bit differently. I've been working with coaches for the last year, interviewing them, having them bring their flavor of coaching to avoid the maze. And now what we're going to do is we're asking you, our listeners, when you listen to these podcasts and you think coaching would be the best thing for me, but where do I start? Well, I am now a coach advocate because I believe in coaching. And today we have another exceptional coach with us by the name of Chris Plourde. And Chris is out on the West Coast. But you know what? That doesn't stop somebody from the East Coast or the other side of the world to get coaching from Chris. And today, Chris, I'd like to talk about something that so many of us have been so afraid to acknowledge. And that is we get stuck in what we're doing because we hear these voices in our head. And we're afraid if we tell our significant other, our parent, our kids, our neighbor, they're going to look at us like we're really crazy. So let's talk about that today. Are we crazy?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. It's nice to meet you. No, we are not crazy. And here's the thing. Everyone has voices. And those voices are important. They have been with us our entire lives. They have allowed us to make decisions. Some would say they're the wrong decisions, but if you look at it and shift the perspective, you probably learned a lot from those decisions, even if you think, oh, I wish I could have done it this way or that way, or so on and so forth. And the whole thing is, if you can identify and actually name those voices, if they're the negative ones, they can lose their power over you. Okay. And let me explain a little deeper. If we're looking at the judge, for example, right? I took this course and I was a coach in this positive intelligence type of positiveintelligence.com coaching program. And they broke it up like this. They said the left brain is the judge. The judge is the one that is the victim, the hyperachiever, the one that is driving you from a survival place, right? A place of, I need to survive in order to do this. And a lot of these voices were formed from times in our lives that we had some trauma, big trauma, little trauma, situations that we've been through that were really hard, that have shaped us and to who we are today. Now, those voices are trying to keep us from feeling those feelings again from those situations and make decisions so we don't have to go back there and experience them. Now, here's the thing. The problem is people avoid those situations and they make decisions based on old programming that has happened for them in their lives, to what they think is to them, right? If we can reframe that and go, okay, there's no way around, there's no way of pushing down, there's only bringing up and going through, that in the middle of those emotions, in the middle of that thing that is trying to keep you safe and comfortable, there could be freedom. There is freedom. There is happiness. There is a space of success that you've never felt before. But it's having the courage to say, I see you, Judge. I see you. And you're not going to make the decisions based upon avoiding it anymore. See, I think a lot of people try to make decisions in their life based on what they don't want, as opposed to what they do want in life. And now if we can reframe that and go, okay, what am I working towards? Do I want to come from the right brain, the sage, the place of compassion, the place of innovation, the place of, creativity? And if that's the decision you want to make, we can disrupt those patterns by naming those things and going, hey, I want to switch the way I'm thinking, but feeling, doing things, create new habits, burn new neural pathways, switch that. I'm talking science now because it's legit science, is switch that gray matter from the left side of your head to the right side of your head by doing certain things and disrupting those patterns, like I just said, and making a decision to move towards what we want in life. I want to be more of the sage, more of the Jedi, more of the person who makes decisions from the heart, not the head. Right. And if we can do that, then we're going to have a much more fulfilling, satisfied, happy life. And I think that's what we're all looking for. But it takes work.
Oh, it definitely does take work. A great example of this is my youngest son has been working in the sports industry. It's his greatest love. And he was made an offer. He took a job. He partially listened with his heart, but more with that judge in his head. If I don't take this now, will I have it in the future? If I don't take this now, am I a failure? And he verbalized a lot of this to us. And I kept saying, you have to do what you feel from the pit of your stomach,
right?
Not necessarily what's in your head right now, because I know a good portion of my life, I was always listening to those voices. Your mother said to do this, and this is right. Okay, I'm not going to do what I want because my mother must be right. Or even sitting down and taking a test, hearing the words of maybe a classmate saying, oh, Karen, you don't know what you're doing. Oh, you're not going to get that right. And I'd sit there and I'd leave it a question blank. And again, I have learned so much through the positive intelligence program that I think it should be taught in school to some degree.
Yeah.
Because as we're sitting in school, I'm too dumb to do the math. So I'm going to fail this test. And sometimes it just takes that positive approach, feeling where it's coming from and saying, well, I'm going to do my best at this. I might not pass the test, but I'm going to do my best that I can do right now. And then learn from that.
Right.
So what made you decide that taking this course of action in your life was something that you wanted to do and share with others?
Yeah. I've made, first of all, coming from a place of making decisions based on old programming from parents, mentors, uncles, aunts, people in my life that I thought were successful and happy, that were telling me to do specific things to no fault of their own. They were doing the best they can with the tools that they had at that time, and saying, hey, this is what success looks like. If you can get a great job working for a great company with a business degree, and you have this and great insurance, so on and so forth, you're going to be happy. You can get a house next to mom. We can have a great neighborhood, right? I mean, the grandkids can be running around, and so you formulate this idea of what success is. And so I did all that. I got my business degree. I had some great internships. I worked for some amazing companies. And to get to the point after about a year or so, maybe longer, that I just wasn't fulfilled. I wasn't happy. I wasn't doing what I wanted to. The companies were great, no fault of theirs. It just wasn't what I wanted, right? And when I could really tap into what coaching was, right? It started off in the fitness realm and then moved into what I'm doing now, and still touching on all areas of life. It's important to, first of all, understand the body and the anatomy of the body, and then move into the deeper parts of ourselves, and knowing and watching people and observing and going, oh, are you making that decision based on old programming, based on what I talked about earlier, the fears, or are you making that decision based on what you want, what you're really dreaming of, what you're doing to fall in love with this journey? And when I observed that and I watched that, and I was like, oh, you're not coming from that place of really truly wanting to be happy. You just don't want to go back to where you were before. And, I had a couple little, fall ups or, catch ups, right? 16 years ago when my, I was doing in the coaching industry, doing really well, traveling around the world, certifying instructors, lecturing, talking. It was awesome working with clients one-on-one, getting sponsors. My wife got pregnant. And I was like, oh, my first kid, right? There's a fear that comes over all, and all of us that have been parents have been there before, right? And I go, well, I'm doing okay in this industry, but maybe I need a more secure corporate job, right? So I said, well, all right, well, what's the number one, the highest paying sales job I can get? Because I had done sales and marketing before. And I said, medical device sales. And I was like, all right, I'm going to go after that. I'm going to see what comes out. And eventually I found a headhunter, and lo and behold, I got a job offer, pretty good one. And I talked to my wife. I said, well, what do you think? And she's like, well, you got to do what makes sense to you. She's very supportive, very pregnant. and I took the job. Right. And I got into it, and the same thing happened after about a year. I was like, wow, this isn't what I love. I couldn't get excited about hemostats and bone grafts, and it was working with the dog. It was cool at first because I got to be in the OR all the time, but then it just got to the same place where I wasn't really tapped into what I was meant to do. And I looked back and I realized, I said, you know what? I went after money first. I went after fear first. I wanted to grow and make that money come first. Now, it's important that we all have money and financial security, of course, right? But that was my number one decision in that. And so I made the decision to get out. And of course, resistance from the universe said, are you sure? And other job offers came and other things came to test me. But once I made that clear decision to go, the universe lined up beautifully, right? My wife, had got a 2-month job that allowed me to transition back. And within 2 to 3 months, I had my clients and the business back. And it was fantastic. It just was like, I can't believe this has happened so seamlessly. But that was a huge lesson for me to really understand that I made a decision based upon fear and not what my heart was calling to. And if I wanted to give my kids a lesson, 2 of them now, 16 and 10, what is it I want you to learn? What is it I'd love you to take with you, a lesson? And that's to follow your heart, to follow your heart, just like what you said to your son. And that's what I learned from me. And hopefully they'll take that. I'm sure they'll have their falls as well, right? But as long as they get back up and they say, okay, what was the lessons from those falls? What did I learn? How did I grow? Did my deep well of wisdom get even deeper because of that decision? And I think, again, that's that extracting that lesson and that perspective and how to shift it. So that was my journey.
Well, and I think what you did is so important for all of us. Not all of us can leave that job and find what we love. And I shouldn't say we can't leave that job. We're sort of tied to it because we want to put food on the table. We want to take care of our family. But one of the things that I was learning as I was slowly leaving corporate America was I haven't been taking the time to do what I really love. So before I leave, I need to think about what are those things. And I was thinking about them and I was dabbling in them. And part of it was completing my master's degree so that I would be stronger in what I was going to do. And when I left corporate America, yes, I was very, very scared. It was like I was basically the breadwinner, and look what I did to my family. But yet my family was very supportive. It was like,
right.
You're a happier person. You're going to make it. And I kept saying, yeah, but I'm not bringing X amount home every 2 weeks. And that was my value. I was bringing home that paycheck. I was taking care of the house. I had the wide shoulders to listen to everybody.
Yeah.
But it wasn't taking care of me. And once I started to, I realized that, yes, that paycheck would have been nice if it could have continued. But all the things it took away from me. Yeah. And, I've had someone say to me, yeah, but your husband still had a job. He did, but it didn't pay very well.
Mm-hmm.
But he was doing what he loved to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized, you know what? We all have to do that. And then the things that you're sacrificing aren't so hard to sacrifice because
Mm-hmm.
you're content.
Yeah. And that's it. You're in your heart, you're going, yeah, I'm waking up every day going, I love what I'm doing, as opposed to waking up on a Monday going, oh, here we go again. Right. And I think that's the indicator, one of the indicators of true happiness and fulfillment is that excitement. And once you have that excitement, that just comes off you, and that's what attracts more beautiful things. Right. They talk about the law of attraction. Well, that's what that is. It's being in that energy, whether you're doing it right now or you're imagining it. That's the whole point, is being able to feel, right? And once you do, allow the universe to come and catch up to you. Now, there's more to it than just the law of attraction. There's the law of Goya that John Astroff coined after that. And that is the law of Goya, is get off your ass, right? So you need to show action to the universe, right? Get into play, make those phone calls, do those things. And I'm sure you have a beautiful story of how you transitioned out of corporate America, but it's not just sitting and waiting, which so many people think. I'm visualizing it, I'm meditating on it every single day. It's actually making the move to do it and showing those one or two or three major actions a day, weekly, whatever it is for you, to let everybody know around you and everything that's coming on that I'm moving towards this. I'm doing things to bring this to me. And that's the co-creation of what we get to do in this life, is being in action and feeling that it's coming your way.
And, one of the things that I have learned from so many of you is that we have developed our idea of success, like you said, based on some old traditional models. And again, that was mine as well. Truly, I wanted my husband to be the breadwinner, but I just happened to fall into the jobs more than he did. I also, wanted to just keep growing our status. And until I realized when I left corporate America, who was I doing that for? And I realized I was doing it more for my parents and his parents, because that way they could be proud of their children. Look at what their children are doing. And but that's not what I wanted for my boys. I wanted them to tell me what made them successful, what made them happy. And when I realized that, it was like, you know what? I have to sort of shut out these voices. It is not always easy to do. One of the things I've learned to do is, I don't have to do it in big chunks of time. I can do it for 60 seconds, which will allow me to breathe, walk away from it. And I've heard people say in 60 seconds, you can't accomplish much, but I can.
Yeah.
I can just get those voices to calm down a little bit. I can tell them, go away for now. I'm doing a podcast. I don't need to hear you.
Yeah. Shh. Right. Well, it's funny. You talk, I'm sure you've talked about the positive intelligence program quite a bit on this, but what he did was he took Shirzad, who created this program. Not only did he take the science and put the studies into it, but and I'm always wondering, and I'll sit down with him someday and go, okay, so tell me, what was your path to healing? And I'm sure there was a meditation, and I know that he said this in some of his live things. There was meditation work, there was shamanic stuff, there was all this really, what people would call woo-woo type of healing that he did. But what he realized, being in corporate and YPO and everything that he was that people aren't going to register with that. You have to bring it down to meet them where they're at. And so he took these techniques, like what you just said, of rubbing your hands together, of focusing on the breath, of being able to get present with a bite of food, or taking a walk and looking at the trees and really honing in. Essentially what he was doing is just bringing people into the moment, right?
Yes.
Well, that's what meditation does. That's what breath work does. That's what all these things that we're fighting to do, not dwelling on what we need, a false fear of the future that we're making up in our minds, or basing things upon a situation that happened in the past that we're trying to avoid. He just wants us present. And so however we get there, what's happening within our bodies and our brains is yes, now you're moving the gray matter from the left brain to the right brain. Now you're bringing down the cortisol levels. You're connecting to the heart. You're being present with yourself. Now, however you get there, I don't care if you meditate for an hour in the woods by yourself, or you just take 10 deep breaths. You're going to have those results that work for you. So find those things, connect to the senses that bring you in to yourself. And having been teaching meditation and breath work for, 8 years or so now, that's what we do, is we just bring people to the moment and get them there by feeling and experiencing their senses. And that's essentially all it does. And that brings us right into our hearts and our souls.
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned two things about our senses. So right before I left corporate America, about a year or two prior, they found a tumor in my left ear. They removed it. Wasn't cancerous, but I lost my hearing. At the same time, when the doctor started working on my left ear, he thought, oh, I don't see anything there. I'm going to go into the right ear, which had perfect hearing. I got off the operating table and did not have perfect hearing. So I started wearing hearing aids. And in the beginning, I heard those voices saying to me, don't tell anybody you're wearing hearing aids, because if they know you're wearing hearing aids, you're old. I don't care if you're 10 years old or if you're 100, you're old. And so I hid it, and yet I was missing out on certain things in my life because I couldn't hear certain tones. And if people didn't know that, how were they going to, change how they spoke to me? But I was outside, about a month after I was wearing them, and I heard all these different birds chirping. And I realized I hadn't paid any attention to that with my good ears. But now I could hear it with my hearing aids. And this revelation came over me. And it's like, there are other things we can hear, other things we can touch, other things that we can feel. And that was the beginning of, hey, I don't belong here in corporate America. Okay. I've been missing out on these sounds. And when I took my first intelligent, I guess you call it a workshop, one of the things that they talk about is rubbing your fingers together and feel the ridges in your fingers. And I remember calling up my coach saying, I have no ridges. They're smooth. And her comment was, okay, feel the smoothness. We're all different.
Yeah.
And again, it was like, hey, I'm okay. I don't have to feel exactly what you feel. And I probably shouldn't.
Yeah. It is. It's all our own perspective. When I work with clients, they can have the same, or I work with a lot of couples too, going through certain situations. I just got back from a retreat in Santa Barbara where it was a bunch of women, but they all had similar issues with their spouses. And the one thing I've learned is you're both right? It's all perspective and how you view the world. Right. And what you have been through, those situations that you're able to look at. And and part of being in that right brain type of heartfelt space is understanding that they're not wrong. They're just having a different experience than you. And when we can understand, oh, they're looking at it like this because they went through a situation in their lives that has brought them to this, right? It doesn't matter what that was. And one example is this one woman would get really upset with her husband and triggered. And I'm just so angry. I'm so angry. And okay, let's figure that out. Why does that happen? Well, let's look back. And when did that happen for the first time? When did you start to feel that? I don't know. Well, how old were you? And eventually, well, 4. Okay. What happened when you were 4? Well, my older brothers would, try to control the situation, and I would be forced not to. I'd have no say in anything. And then, so what did you do? Well, I just shut up and went off and did my own thing. And I go, how did you feel? Well, up disappointed. And then what is over that? Anger. Okay. What's going on with your husband right now? Was it the same feelings? Oh my God, it is. So your husband is triggering old 4-year-old emotions that are going on. He did nothing wrong. He showed you who he was from the beginning, right? From these times you've been together. He's just bringing up old stuff. How beautiful is that? You get to look at those triggers based upon somebody in your life that's here to teach you, right? So in that point, she was like, oh my God, he's teaching me. He's bringing these triggers up intentionally. He's doing nothing wrong. I'm viewing it from a different perspective. Now it's like, instead of get away from me, I can't stand being around you, it's, what are you here to teach me and bring up for me so that I can look at it, hold it, see that as a part of me, reframe my perspective on how I hold that so that I can move through life in a different way than I have been, with a different energy, with a different motive than trying to avoid. So we talk about, yes, you're feeling it different, but we're also having experiences of different ways. So the next couple of weeks after that, I was like, so tell me, how's it been? He goes, yeah, they're triggers, but they're not there. I'm seeing them. I'm observing them. I'm watching them from the inside out. So the charge isn't as heavy. And I'm able to look at those things that happened for me as a kid, not to me, for me, and be able to view, that's how I became the person I am. Thank you. That's who I am today. Do I want to choose using that energy to move forward? Not necessarily. But every time I look at it, it gets a little lighter and a little lighter and a little lighter and a little lighter. But I keep looking at it. It doesn't go away. And that's where people mistake. It doesn't ever go away. It just gets smaller and softer and softer and softer. And it stays with you so that you can have the compassion and the ability to teach people. Because I think we're all meant to be in service based upon our experiences that we've had in our life. Eventually, we're going to be at this place where we go, how can I serve something greater than me? Right? So perspective shift. And it takes a minute, it takes an instant to do that.
And, it's interesting because I've always been a people pleaser. And when I
Me too.
Did that, when I did this worksheet last week, it really dominated everything. Avoidance was way at the bottom, but people pleaser was at the top. And it sort of was bothering me because I've been trying to set boundaries.
Yeah.
But I was talking to somebody the other day and I mentioned it to him, and he said, for some reason you have a negative connotation for people pleaser. He said, are you pleasing people because you want to please them? Because it helps you? Or are you pleasing them because you think you have to, and that's the only choice you have? And I thought about it and it was like, well, for a long time in my life, I was pleasing people because, I just thought I had to. And, it's like following the directions of your parents, know you're supposed to make your bed. So before they tell you, make the bed and make it right, and they'll be happy.
Yeah.
And that's what I had been doing my whole life up until my 50s, until one day it was like, no, I don't have to do it that way. There is a better way, because being that people pleaser for 50 years, I was resentful. I was angry.
Yeah.
And so I went back and I looked at that worksheet again and I thought, okay, I'm going to save it here. Okay. And it's okay that I'm a people pleaser, but now I'm going to think about when it really means something to me,
Mm-hmm.
or when I feel that those voices are saying, Karen, you have to do this, because maybe I don't have to.
No. Yeah. It's funny being a people pleaser as well. One of my top ones, hyperachiever is the other one, right? When I realized where that came from, it was a big dominance over, my mom's way of doing things. She came from the heart, love, 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 amazing, right? I mean, I was so fortunate to have her, and still have her, but there was this, you need to do it right. You need to make sure that you don't show any negativity, that you're not screwing up in any way, shape, or form, that you're taking care of others before you take care of yourself. And that way you're going to go to heaven. Is what it came down to, right? When you die, you're going to go to heaven. Recovering Catholic as well, right? So that was my whole thing, is like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make sure I go to church. I'm going to make sure that everybody's taken care of. I'm going to over the top, to the point where I realized my cup wasn't full, just like you.
Yep.
Right. And then it was like, oh, that's hers, and she can choose to look at that or not, but I don't have to continue to take on those mannerisms that were taught to me, right? She did that out of what she thought was right. So thank you for doing that. But now it's like, let me take care of myself first so that my cup is full. And that way I can give from the best part of myself, not from that negative, resentful place where I'm only at a 4 on a scale of 1 to 10. I am fulfilled. I am happy. I'm connected. I'm in the moment. Now I can give the best version of me. And it took a while to get there, to understand that, to see those energy ties that were given to me from her. But I chose to take those on until I was ready to look at where those came from and say, now I want to do this in a different way. It got me here. What's the next way? And how do I want to do it moving forward? So,
well, this morning I wrote a blog. If my father had lived today, he would have been 105 years old. And every year my brothers and I always post something about him. And today, as I was writing up, I thought to myself, my father always looked at his life as the cup half full. And today, when I looked at that cup half full, I realized that he had another message, and that was sip on it and savor it. And I would look at the cup half full for a long time and say, well, I'm really thirsty, so I'm just going to gulp it down. And this morning, just out of the blue, that's not what he was telling me. He was telling me, sip on it, savor it. And my whole perspective since I wrote that at 8:00 my time, which is a little over 3 hours ago, I have felt very light. I have felt, engaged in my feelings. And I thought, there's something about, looking at that cup. Because as a kid, it was always half empty. It's never going to get filled. But then as an adult, okay, I see it. But if I'm thirsty, I'm just going to drink it all down. I don't think I'll ever look at it that way again. It's one
beautiful.
sip at a time.
Yeah, that's right. In one instant, you had that, right?
Yeah.
One instant. And we get to continuously do this. I'm doing a lot of research on, longevity and our mortality as we get older. And a lot of it is, we can have the best doctors and medicine out there, but it's mostly the emotional and mental health, right? It's having little insights like what you just did that keep us moving forth, that slow us down and go, oh, this tastes beautiful. Listen to those birds. Like, let's taste this beautiful tea or coffee or, sip of wine or whatever is going to bring us joy. that's the whole point, right? And I know for years, it wasn't, for me, it wasn't about slowing down. It was about speeding up more, 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 right? Until I realized that the more wasn't getting me anymore. It was actually getting me less. Right. So it's taking those moments and bringing quality to those moments, like you just said, and having those beautiful insights, right? And shifting those so that we can have this long, beautiful life. And studies are showing now that we're getting happier as we get older, in our 40s and 50s and 60s. And,
Right.
and it's not about the traditional retirement anymore. It's about keeping the why and keeping the purpose and doing things to fulfill us and others along the way, so that we can savor these moments, just like you said.
So you talked about the fact that you have 2 children. And in today's society, how easy is it as a parent and somebody who believes in fulfilling your own happiness? How easy is it raising children today? Because my 2 boys are 15 years apart. And so it was like totally different on both of them. One was growing up in the 80s and 90s. The other one was starting to grow up in the 90s and the early 2000s. And things had dramatic shift in our society. And now today, after the pandemic, how do we help our children follow a path, but be willing to take those detours that I know I was terrified to take growing up? It was like, go straight, do not look back.
It's a great question. Mine are 6 years apart, so 16 and 10. So I feel like that was really nice for us to have that moment of go, wow, this 6 years flew by. Okay, let's slow down a little bit with my daughter, right? And we have done that. And I think the simple answer is, do the work on yourself. It's, we're doing the emotional work, right, that our parents didn't necessarily do on themselves because they didn't have permission, right? Like, I remember telling my mom I went to therapy, 20 years ago, and eventually telling her. And then she literally had tears in her eyes going, what did I do wrong? I go, nothing. This is like the mental gym, right?
Right.
And now, she goes and she's working on herself to a certain degree, to the degree she's willing to. But you did nothing wrong. Like, this is me getting in touch with my soul. This is me understanding why I operate the way I do. Right. That was her pleaser again coming out, and then getting that. So I think if we have a beautiful community of parents and friends that do some deep work together, and we all share it all the time. But it's being able to share it and speak of it, right? And tell our kids, like, for example, recently my insurance goes, oh, you have 10 free therapy sessions. And I'm like, hey, great, fantastic. Let's take those. Right. And let's just see what gets uncovered. Right. And I was at the dinner table and I told them, well, my kids, I'm going to therapy again. And sharing that we're doing the work on ourselves, and maybe not, you don't have to go into the deep trauma of it, but share with them what you got, what you received, how you grew, a moment that you thought, like, your perspective shift. Right. And if they're seeing that, and you're not pontificating and going, you should do this and that and but going, this is how I grew. You're going to be amazed at those lessons that they see and observe, just like when we saw those negative lessons, right, from our parents, and go, oh, they did this. I don't want to do that. Right. I got to a point where I was able to thank my dad for all of the things that he has done, directly and indirectly, for me, the lessons he's given me, not taking care of himself, being an alcoholic, doing these things. Like, thank you, Dad, for, but also for being there all the time at all my games and my graduations and this and that. But at the same time, not getting in touch with his emotions, right? And going, thank you for all of these things that you have given to me, that I've observed, and the lessons I learned from you, whether they were direct or indirect. And I'd rather be that parent that's going to do the deep dive, get into myself and be able to share my lessons that I've learned, I think that carves the way for them to be a little freer and be a little more open with their emotions. I've always encouraged emotional intelligence with my kids, right? Understanding why they are. Cry if you need to cry. Feel the feels, but own them. Don't be victimized by them. Own them. And there's a big shift that might happen.
Well, I'm so glad you shared that because, again, I don't blame my parents or my aunts and uncles for, trying to tell me this is the way to do it and the only way to do it. I know where they're coming from. I've done the family research, and even my grandparents who were like that, they were like that for a reason.
Right.
And so I cherish that part of my background and those sometimes feelings that cause me angst. It's like, okay, your mother may have told you, don't hang out your dirty laundry for the neighbors to see, but sometimes you have to share that dirty laundry so people can understand who you are, what you're doing, and why you're doing it. So
totally. It's authenticity, it's vulnerability, right? And I think people, even though they're like, ooh, I don't want, like, I know my mom never wanted us to, you don't tell anybody that just happened, right? That type of thing. But what I'm finding and have found that vulnerability is so much more powerful, right? Like being able to share what you have gone through and the lessons you got from that. Amazing. Absolutely. Right? Like that's what people want to hear. We heal through stories. So this is what happened. This is what I felt going through it. This is the lessons I've learned from it. Right. And this is the gifts that I extracted from that. This is why I'm the man or the woman that I am today, because I went through that really hard time. Right. And being able to share that, I bet you, just for all your listeners, if you want to do an exercise, take 4 or 5 moments in your life from the age of 0 to wherever you are now. Probably those major things happened before the age of 25, but those things you might not want to wish upon anybody. And then write them down. What was it? What did you feel? What lessons did you learn? And what are your superpowers that you gained from those moments? Now, I'm not saying go into the trauma. If it's bringing up trauma, of course, talk to a therapist or whatever. But it gets you to look at your life and shift it from, if that didn't happen to me, then I would be here, and get rid of the anger of it and go, this is what happened for me. And look at what I gained from that. That was hard. Hell yeah. But look at how I am today because of that situation that I went through, those situations that I went through. Absolutely. And that's embracing and self-love. That's learning how to love yourself and all of the things that you cannot change, but you can shift the perspective on how you hold that within yourself.
How beautifully said. Well, Chris, how can our listeners find you? Because you know what, as I said in the beginning, I am a coach advocate. I've had listeners contact me and say, who do you think I should contact? Should I contact Chris? Should I contact somebody else? And my comment always is, well, let's try to find out what you need in your life for a coach. You need somebody that you're going to sit in the same room with. Can it be done long distance? Are you really looking for a coach? Are you looking for a therapist? And so I do all the vetting. I let them know that I have nothing in this other than to help them find the right person. And you know what? If the 3 leads or 4 leads I give them are not right, we'll go back through the database because it's not easy to decide. And even if you decide and you say, going into it, that was the wrong person, I don't know one coach who wouldn't say, that's okay. Follow your path.
That's right.
So how can they find you?
Yeah, no, and just to speak upon that, I think most coaches these days give discovery calls so
Right.
that, we can, and maybe they're longer than 20, 30 minutes, but I want to make sure when I work with clients that there's a value there first before they commit with me for 6 months, a year, because we're going to get to work. It's going to be hard and it's going to be worth it. And there's going to be a lot of major shifts that happen because of it. Right. But I want to make sure we're the right energies. And I think coaches want to work well. I want the client of obviously to be excited to work with me, but I want to be excited to work with the client as well. So first and foremost, let's make sure the energies are lined up. So if you interview 2 or 3 coaches, great, but make sure you're getting value from that coach first. Right. There's 7 billion people in this world, and there's a lot of coaches that have different ways of doing things.
Absolutely.
So line up your story with your coach. Right.
Absolutely.
So yes, but you can do that through my website, chrisplourde.com. Just my name. There's, a free breathwork class. There's ways to do discovery calls. And then a lot of my info is on Instagram, at Coach Chris Plourde. You can find a lot of what I do and my philosophies there as well. So.
And for those of you who said, wow, I missed all that, don't worry. We will have it in the show notes. And I encourage all of our listeners, if you think this is something that really resonates for you, please share it with your friends and family. I have found that sometimes we decide that this is something we want to do, and I'm not looking for the negative feedback, but if there is negative feedback, understand what it is as you're moving forward. Because the first time I went for coaching, I'll tell you, my husband was like, well, what's wrong with us? And I said, it has nothing to do with you. It's about me. Okay.
Right.
And I don't know if there's anything wrong with me, but I want to make sure that I'm doing all the right things for me. I go to my doctor, I go to my dentist, I go to the gym. This is one more thing that I need to go to
Correct.
keep me healthy. And when I explained it to him that way, and then he started listening to some of the podcasts, it was like, oh, okay, it's not about me.
Yeah.
You're right. It's about me.
That's right. Old programming, right?
Exactly.
And it's us holding each other accountable. It's like, let's work towards what you want in life, and let's not run away from what you don't want.
Exactly.
You're falling in love with the journey of becoming your greatest self. That's what we can help you be.
I love it. Well, have a great day out on the West Coast. Looks like a beautiful day here in the Midwest, and have a great one. Talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.
Sure.